Welcome to the Charlotte CBMC podcast, a series of candid conversations with area business and professional men. In this series, you'll hear how CBMC has connected businessmen to God, His Word, and each other, equipped them to grow and become godly leaders at work, in their community, and at home. Now, let's join our host for this episode of the Charlotte CBMC podcast.
Well, hello, Charlotte CBMCers, and welcome to another episode of the CBMC Charlotte podcast. I'm your host, Brian Bratti, Executive Business Coach, and I'm continuing my interview with John Daniels, a.k.a. Johnny D. How you doing tonight, Johnny?
I am doing great tonight. Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, last episode, we talked about your childhood. We talked about you coming to faith and that amazing Sunday you had when you gave your life to Christ. We also talked about some of the issues you faced as a young man growing up in your house and so forth. Today, we'd like to talk about where that went, where that landed, because you were about 25 years old, if I remember, when you became a Christian. And if I remember correctly, about 4 years later, you started your ministry. And that, again, is the 2CM ministry. So talk to us about that. What was that like, and how did God help you in that process?
So after I had became a Christian, gave my heart to the Lord, went home and called all the club friends on the phone and told them that God is the answer, Jesus is the Lord. And they asked me, has I lost my mind? and they said, well, I'm going to get back with you on that, Johnny D. And it's been about 20, 30 years. They still ain't called me back up about it. So I got heavily involved in church, started going to church every Sunday. Enjoying the Lord, learning how to read my Bible, learning how to pray. And the pastor said, Johnny, I believe the Lord has a call on your life. I can see that you're called to one of the offices of the fivefold ministry, pastor, apostle, prophet, pastor, evangelist, teacher. I don't know which one, but I see you have a call on your life. And I said, okay. And so maybe after about, after about 3 years, 2-3 years going to this new church that gave me got saved and gave my heart to, I was a sales rep at this time for Orkin Pest Control. I was working in a sales division in an Orkin Pest Control location about an hour outside of Detroit called Wayne, Michigan. And they had put me on leave for a little while. And I had some free time to go volunteer at the church. Pastors are always talking about it's nice to have faithful men that can be there when they need them. So I said, I got some free time. I'm getting paid on my time off. Let me go volunteer at the church. And it was a Friday afternoon. And so I got up and got dressed and was making my way up to the church. And I told the pastor I'd be there Friday to do some volunteer work. And on my way, I heard the voice of the Lord say, it was like an unctioning. It's not a good time to go to church today. And I'm thinking to myself, but I gave the pastor my word, and I told him I would be there. And at that time of my life, I was still a baby Christian. So I was still an orphan from a lot of trauma from my childhood on. So I was looking for a father figure, and I was trying to live up to the pastor's expectation and be a man of my word. And so 3 times I heard that unction in that voice say, it's not a good time to go to the church today. But I just avoided that, and I just went on. And the Lord said at that time, the pastor's voice was bigger than his voice at that time. So I went on to church. And when I went to that church that day, a large propane tank about as tall as I was on the second floor of that building. They just had built a new department on the second floor of the building, on top of the garage, like a office. And the pastor was going to use the propane tank temporarily just to heat up the room for that season until he got the proper heating system in it the next year with his finances. And a large propane tank exploded and caught on fire while I was there. And I was the only one that was in the building at the time. The pastor had ran out to the bank. So a gush of fire came flowing out of this propane tank. And it filled the whole room up with propane fuel. So I ran to the telephone and I called the propane company and said, am I in any trouble? The valve has been released on the propane tank and it's gushing out the fumes. And it's loud. I mean, it's like, wow. And he said, well, listen. He said, go open up all the windows in the room that you're in, and you get proper ventilation, and the fumes should just leave out of the room, and you'll be safe. So I ran around and opened up the windows, and when I walked back over to that tank, a gush of fire blew out of that tank.
Oh, my goodness.
And the whole room went up in a tower inferno. And
you were in this room at the time?
And I was in the room next to the tank, and I said, oh, my God, I'm in trouble.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the next thing I know, an explosion happened, and I fell on the floor. And it was a little tiny closet next to the propane tank. And I don't know how I got in there, but I fell and I ended up landing in this little bitty tiny closet with the door open. But the propane tank was still outside that door, just gushing out the fumes and fire. And the whole place was a tower inferno. So I
Oh, my
crawled up like an
goodness.
infant baby, and I put my hands on my face. I crawled up, balled up, and I was trying to think of a scripture to pray over myself. Now, I wasn't afraid to die because I knew I had already been preached, we're going to heaven, we're going to heaven. But I was not ready to go. I thought God
Of
had more
course.
work for me to do, had a calling on my life. So I'm sitting there saying, wow, Lord, man, I can't believe this is happening to me. I thought you had a calling to work on my life. So I'm trying to think of a scripture. I couldn't think of no scriptures to pray on. And all I could think to say was, save me, Jesus, save me, Jesus, save me, Jesus. And I remember the building started shaking up and breaking up from the fire.
What
And
floor? What floor were you on,
I was
John?
on the second floor of the building at the time. I was on the second floor,
Oh
and a
my
little small
goodness.
closet on the side of that propane tank. And I remember hearing the voice of the enemy say, today you die, you're going to fall all the way from the second floor all the way into the garage basement of this building and hit the concrete down there. He said, so say goodbye all your family and friends. You're going to die today. And I just kept saying, save me, Jesus. Save me, Jesus. And I had my hands on my face, and I looked between the crack of my fingers, and I could see all the fire around me and gushing around me. And the next thing I know, I passed out, and a gush of fire blew through the closet and blew me out of the side of the building. No window or anything, just blew me out of the side of that building. And I passed out.
So
And
did
when
you
I woke
fall?
up
You fell to a
from the
story? You
second
fell
floor,
from the second
yep,
floor. You were
from the
blown out
second
the
floor.
side of a building onto and fell a story down.
Yes. So I got blew out of the building, and I passed out. And when I woke up, I was floating up. My spirit man was floating on the side of that building. And I'm thinking it's a dream. I said, okay, because my mind is trying to rationalize all this trauma. And I'm thinking in my head and my thoughts, this is a nightmare. I'm having a bad dream. I never came to the church. This is not really happening. This that kind of stuff I see on TV, life and death experiences. My
Right.
life is not going through that today. This is not my life. That's that TV stuff. This is not happening for me. I mean, I'm trying to rationalize what's going on with my life today because there was so much trauma to take in. And all I remember is when I looked up, floating on the side of that building, my spirit man, it was beautiful. It was blue. It was pretty. It was peaceful. I wasn't on fire. I wasn't burning. It's like everything was just gorgeous. It was peaceful. And while I'm up there, and it's like I was in a dream because it was like a fall. And when I looked, my earth vessel was still on fire, crawled up like a baby saying, save me, Jesus. And it just floated and landed to the ground, real soft. Outside that second story building, it just floated. And when it touched the ground, it's like my spirit man, like in a dream, a haze floating in the sky. It's like I just floated back in my body and I passed out again. And I thought laying outside that ground, I thought I was still in the building. So I was still saying, I'm in the body saying, save me, Jesus, save me, Jesus. I'm still in this building. And I heard an audible voice of the Lord. And he said, Johnny, I've given you a second chance. You need to get up on your feet and go run for your life. And I didn't move. I was scared. I wasn't going nowhere. And he said it again, Johnny, it is safe. I need you to get up on your feet, go, giving you a second chance, go run for your life. So I jumped up on my feet. My lower half of the clothes was still on fire. Half the clothes was burnt off of me. Hair was all burned up. Hands were burned up. And the lower half was still on fire. And I went running from that. And the building pieces was falling my way from the building. And I went running from that building. And all the fire just blew out of my clothes.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
So,
And then
so what kind of injuries did you sustain? Did you
well,
get like third-degree burns?
Yes. I had about second-degree burns. A gentleman in seen it from a neighborhood behind, seen the church on fire, so he came over to see what was going on because it was like a Friday afternoon, and he caught up with me, and he said, "Man, you." And I asked him how bad is my burns because I couldn't see myself, and he said, "Well, your hair burned up, your ears, your eyes, your hands burned up, piece of the body," and then he ran me into his home, and I said, "Man, I'm in a lot of pain." And he said, "I don't know what to do." And then he heard the paramedics, the siren came in. He ran me to the paramedics. They put me in the ambulance, put me on the gurney. They put IVs in both my arms. And the paramedics looked over me and he said, are you safe? And I said, yeah. I just got burned up in this building fire, man. Yeah. He said, but are you safe? I'm like, did he not hear what I just said? I said, yeah. I just got burned up in this building. 3 times. Are you saved? I said, Romans 10, 8, 9, 10, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart that Jesus Lord. He said, now I know you saved. He
So
said, I didn't mean to be hard on you, Johnny, but this is my ministry. He said, I get to meet people that are low end of their life. And a lot of times people think because they go to church, sing the choir, go with their parents, they say. That's why I asked you 3 times. And when you quoted the word, you let me know you were saved. Yeah. So they rushed me through Detroit. They rushed me to the hospital, Detroit Receiving Hospital, downtown, or kind of not downtown. And they had all the white coat doctors outside waiting on me, like the old-fashioned hospital movie back in the day, ER. Right. You know, and Detroit got so many potholes. We ride in the back of that truck. My hands burnt up my face. I can't defend myself, so I'm paranoid. And I'm like, I'm not gonna shoot out the back of this paramedics van. I mean, he said, no, you okay? We got you strapped in because we hitting potholes all through the journey. And then we get there and they roll me in. They got all the doctors waiting outside for my emergency coming in, being burnt. And they rushed me into a room and they got doctors all around me, checking me from head to toe. The hospital chaplain comes in and he's like, are you saved? I said, chaplain, the EMS already got me.
I've already been through this.
He said he already got me. He put the cross over me and said, well, God bless you, brother. Yeah. And so the specialist saying, Johnny, listen, we can't give you any painkiller. And a lot of your skin has been burned up. Because we need to do x-rays to see if you have any internal bleeding, and we don't want it to get in the way. And he said, there's no way in the world you got blew out of a 2nd-story building. You didn't break any bones. You must have internal bleeding.
Well, that's the question I was going to ask, because you out of a 2nd-story building, you didn't break any bones at all.
Nothing broken. And they said, that's a miracle. You must have internal bleeding or something. So we got to put you in an x-ray. We can't give you medication because it'll get in the way of us seeing your x-rays. And they said, and he said, now, being burned is the worst experience of a human being on the planet. They said they have done their surgery, they've done their research and homework, and it's the most painful event that a human being can ever go through is smelling his own flesh on fire. And they said, what make it so bad? Usually the people have died in the fire with the smoke ventilation before they get burned up or cooked up. He said, you lived through it. So you smelling your own flesh on fire. They said, that's the worst pain any human being can go through. So they said, we learned not to lie to our burn patients. We got to put you in intensive care in the burn unit, and we don't lie to them. We just tell them straight up how bad it is, and we let them make the decision they want to live or die. But I was only like 2nd degree. So they had to rush me into x-ray rooms, and then the last part, they had to take you to the shower. And he said, now, Johnny, a lot of skin been burned off, so your nerves are open. We're going to give you medication, but it's not going to numb that because they're so open, and that's going to cause a lot of pain. But we have to put you in the shower because we got to get all the infection out. We got to get all the dead skin out so your body won't get infected by your wound. And it's going to cause a lot of pain. So they said, you can shout, you can cuss. We don't hurt it all. I said, well, I ain't cussed in years, but I'm going to call on Jesus. I said, I've been shouting out to the Lord. I haven't had a cuss word in a long time. And so they put me in intensive care burn unit. And, you know, when everybody comes to see you, you only get to see everybody's eyes because everything is bathed up from all the open wounds. The specialist comes in and say, so we can't guarantee your skin graft. You need a little skin graft. Your hands got burnt the worst, your face, your eyes, your ears, your scalp, different parts of your body. And it doesn't always work. So we're not sure about the skin graft, but we need to do it. It may take, it may not. Number 2, you took a lot of heat in your lungs. So you may have a lot of breathing problems when the summer come out and the sun come out. Your eyes got burned up really bad. So you may have some eye problems. Your ears got burned up. You may have hearing problems. And my face was really swelled up and two-tone. My face was very two-tone from the fire. So they said there's not a chance all your skin pigmentation may come back. So he laughed out, and he said, so I was a little down and out. I'm sitting there saying, now let me get this straight. Let me get this straight, Dad. I ran them streets for 6 years doing my own thing in the world, chasing girls, chasing my music dreams. I come and get saved, and I got killed in the church. It was safer right in the streets. I said, life was safer in the streets. I get in the church and got killed. And he said, Johnny, he said, that's that devil. He said, he meant it for your hurt. He's mad because you switched sides with him and he's trying to get you back. He said, but listen, So the devil meant it for your hurt, but I'm gonna use it for your good. So I'm in there, I just hear the voice of the Lord speaking to me. I was really down and out. And I feel like his presence came in and just started speaking to me. He said, so I'm gonna give you, he said, no skin graft, no surgery, no hearing problems, no breathing problems. He said, I'm gonna give you your face back. I don't know why you want that mugshot, but you can have it back. And I started laughing in the bed. He was cracking jokes. I was laughing. And he said, now your hands, I'm going to leave at the testimony. I'm going to leave your hands like that because they're going to be your testimony. And he said, 3 reasons I'm going to leave your hands like that. He said, if anybody ever asks what's going on your hands, he said, let them know that God did a miracle in your life and he wants to do a miracle in their life. He's a miracle worker. You're supposed to be dead. He gave you a second chance. He said, number 2, if you ever having a hard down and out time in your life and feel like God is just not there, a dry season, look at your hands. You're supposed to be dead. I gave you a second chance. And he said, reason number 3, he said, what was reason number 3, Holy Spirit? Reason number 3, if you ever think about going back to them streets, he said, you don't beat them streets, Johnny. Them streets been there before you came, and when you go there, still be them streets. He said, look at your hands. I gave you a second chance. You're supposed to be dead if I gave you a second chance. So my body began to heal up. So the specialist came in a little later over the weekend. He said, from the looks of it, you're healing up pretty good. You ain't going to need no surgery, no skin graft. I said, the Lord already told me. I said, he already told me. No surgery, no skin graft, no hearing, no breathing problem. He's going to give me everything back. He said, well, you have a good day now. So that was the beginning of Second Chance Ministry. When I blew out of that building, hit the ground on fire, he said, I love you. I'm giving you a second chance. Get up on your feet, go run for your life. Tell my people I want to give them a second chance. So the ministry is abbreviated 2CM, Second Chance Ministry, and it's evangelistic ministry.
Right. And it sounds like it's about helping others with second chances and so forth, right?
Yes. All about giving a second chance to the outcast, dysfunctional home, fatherless, broken homes, been through a lot of tragedies in their life. To go out and give them hope, give them inspiration, and offer that second chance.
Let me ask you a question on that, because that's a good point. As we come up to the close of this segment, you grew up with a dad. You grew up in a house with a mom and a dad, and you're trying to reach fatherless children.
Yes.
Particularly, it sounds like fatherless young men, right?
Yes.
So my question to you is, how does that work for you? Because you really didn't grow up that way, but you have a heart for that. But so does anybody question on that? So for example, if I'm a kid in your ministry, right, and you're discipling me, and I ask you, well, what was it with your dad? You tell that young man, well, yeah, I grew up with a dad, and I grew up in kind of a middle class home in Detroit.
Yeah.
You find yourself having a disconnect with that particular young man.
Yeah, so that's good you say that. So I was a youth pastor working in an urban community for a number of years when I moved to Charlotte. And I'm reaching this audience of kids that didn't have a dad, broken homes, low income community. And all that time, I'm talking to the kids and speaking to them, saying, well, I did come up in a 2-parent home. And maybe a few years later, the Lord just gave me a wake up and said, but Johnny, you had an absent dad, so you didn't have a father.
Right.
You had a dad who had an address there. He paid the bills, but you didn't have a dad. And, I never had thought of that. Right. I was like, well, I'm a little privileged. It's a broken home, but I'm a little privileged. He said, no, you don't get it. You grew up in a home, what they call an absent father. He had an address, but your father was always gone. So you was fatherless too. And I had never seen that before.
Well, and I bring up that question, and we'll be closing on this, but I bring up this question for our viewers because you might have also grown up in a house where dad was there but wasn't, right? And as a result of that, because dad was there but wasn't, you also kind of suffered the trauma of a fatherless home, and so that's something to think about as if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in Johnny D's ministry, or you're interested in getting some kind of healing along those lines, because as Johnny will tell you, there's trauma associated with growing up in a house with a father who's there but isn't, right? Well, Charlotte, CBMCers, that's all for this episode. Again, I'm your host, Brian Bratti. and you've been listening to the Charlotte Christian Businessmen's Connection podcast. Until next time, God bless and Godspeed.
We hope you are blessed and encouraged by this episode. The Charlotte CBMC podcast is also available on the Queen City Leaders app. Now you can easily listen or watch and share these inspirational podcasts with others. Download the app at the Apple App Store or Google Play. For more information about Charlotte CBMC, simply type in the browser address line charlotte.cbmc.com. That's charlotte.cbmc.com. There you'll discover free resources to deepen your faith. Connect to one of the area's C3 groups that meet each week. For business owners, discover the Trusted Advisors Forum, where you can meet with other business owners and discuss how to grow your business spiritually. Finally, you'll learn about Charlotte CBMC sponsored events like the Queen City Leaders Summit Series. Please subscribe to this podcast so you'll know when new episodes are available. Like and share this podcast with other men and help us spread the good news of Jesus Christ throughout the Queen City. Join us again next time for a new episode of the Charlotte CBMC podcast. May you have a blessed and productive day working for the Lord. Thank you.